Today we're talking about healthy eating and fitness. So Nathan Johnson is an expert in helping South Asians lose weight and is with me now. Hey Nathan, how are you doing?
Hey, Shruti, how's things? I'm great, thank you.
Yeah, all good, thanks. So you are obviously not South Asian, Nathan. So how did you get into working with this particular community?
If I had a pound every time I heard that, I'd be a millionaire. 6 years ago, I was working as a PT on the gym floor in central London. I got a client who was South Asian, though, who was working in data analytics. And then he got in amazing shape. He lost 15 kilos and went to a wedding. And then, as everybody does when they go to a wedding, someone looks amazing, looks different. He started referring friends and family, and it just grew from that position. And it became something that's all we did. And we just basically became the white guys that help people from the South Asian background getting amazing shape. What we saw as we went through the last couple of years was that not everybody was doing it the way where you could eat the traditional South Asian food, eat the cultural norms, eat with family, and still get an amazing shape. So we kind of became that people that help people eat the normal traditional South Asian food, keep their cultural traditions, and still get in amazing shape, which is I think is great.
What are the biggest issues that you find with South Asians, Nathan?
So I think it's the element of the cultural dynamics around portion sizes become a massive thing. Like it's always encouraged to have more and more and more, overfeeding and multiple plates of foods. It becomes like a big joyous celebration occasion. And at the same time, is that also is the opposite of what we're trying to do to minimize our weight gain, stop the type 2 diabetes, for example. And we want to kind of have good portion regulation. So that becomes a big factor. I think the second part is the element of exercise. It's not really popularized too much outside of the novel new ways of Apple Watches giving us steps and these little rings that we utilize. But over the last 10 to 15, 20 years, there hasn't been that major push in terms of activity or even youngsters getting into football or sports. And I think that becomes a bit of a barrier when it comes to activity levels, your bone health, muscle tissue, and it just isn't a habit for most people to get into. So when they get into it into their later 20s, their later 30s, they find it hard and difficult because it's something new and they haven't really got that muscle memory or that activity into their day-to-day habit. So it's hard to integrate it. So that becomes a challenge too.
So you mentioned portion size, but then there's also diet. So you've got, say, the Mediterranean diet is known for being really healthy, whereas the South Asian diet, not so much. How do you get past that?
Yeah, so I'm contrary to popular belief. I believe that there's large benefits to the South Asian foods, whether it is the legumes, the lentils, the dals, whichever way it is, and even in the carb sources, whether it is the rotis or chapatis or the veggie curries within themselves, they have lots of nutritious elements. It's in a case of that, but unfortunately, these foods are really easy to overconsume because they taste damn good, they're made with love and family members, and it becomes more of a case of like even the Mediterranean diet. If you have enough feta cheese and olives, you're going to be able to accumulate body fat because you're eating lots and lots of calories. So I would say that it's not that it's a harder diet to lose weight on or be healthier. It's just those foods are amazing to eat and you want more and more of them. You can't tell me that chevro isn't just more after one spoonful, right? So it's not that chevro or gadir or anything like that is really bad for us. It's just that one spoon doesn't feel like it's enough, and then we have our second and third one, which is then where the damage is kind of being done. It just feta cheese doesn't give us that feeling if we're doing the Mediterranean diet, right?
One spoon definitely isn't enough. I know that feeling. You said you made your way around South Asian food. How did you get into eating it all and trying it all? Do you have a lot of it in your house?
Yeah, so I actually am the a very proud owner of a cupboard like every other South Asian household where I've got my chevro specifically got from Kenya, which I believe is the best like chevro in the world, which I've tried. So I have variations in my house for sure, but to be honest, it came from two areas. One, curiosity to understand. I had clients and someone was saying things like chevro or gatia, and I didn't know what they were at the beginning. So I went away and researched it and went for a taste test, and then got exposed to these variations and became to love them. And then as this became a big thing in which we do, I had to take myself to Goa, to Delhi, to Mumbai, to Kenya, to go and really experience the differences between the South Asian culture within the US, Kenya, and London, for example. And they're all massively different in way that they eat food, interact with food, the variations. So we went on a bit of an exploration to make sure that we knew how to help people all in these different areas. So it's one thing saying, hey, have a portion plate of this, but it's another way to say, I understand how you feel when you eat that food or when it is moreish or when mum does put another plate in front of you, how hard it is to say no. So I had to put myself in that scenario to be empathetic and basically use myself as a guinea pig too.
Just out of curiosity, what's your weak spot?
Oh, chevro, and the belly. The belly is probably, well, it has chevro on, so it's almost like the best thing for me. Bread, potatoes, all the garam masalas,
The
and then
peanuts.
yes, yeah, it's top notch. And I think, if I was back in my days of not knowing education around food, I could definitely do like 4 or 5 of those for sure.
How much of the difficulties that Asians find losing weight is about genetics, Nathan?
So from a genetic perspective, so I've done a lot of research on this recently because I wanted to really fine tune understanding what the dynamics were. And of course, there is an element where body fat is stored in the midsection of the body, in the belly area. But from a genetic perspective, like bones, actually South Asian individuals have lower bone mass and like the density than most other people. So a lot of people say like we're big bone genetically. You're actually less bone, a genetic point of view. So there is no difference in terms of body fat ability to lose body fat, because that's the simple mechanism that everybody in everybody's body has to be able to do. It just comes down to, for me personally, it's always about the lifestyle that they'll have, the opportunity in front of them for their food habits, their exercise habits. I've never seen anybody who's coming to our program, for example, ever have trouble losing weight when it came down to their body. It was always what they were doing with their body and what they were putting into their body that was always the biggest barrier. And I feel that that's also a really good, like, kind of, it's not a myth, but it's more of a case of you get certain cards that you're dealt, right? If it is like small wrists or small pelvis, or you get these cards that you dealt with maybe a higher probability of type 2 diabetes, but they're not really things that we can change. But the things that we can change are what we put into our bodies, how we exercise, how we think about food, what environments we put ourselves in, how much we drink or eat the chevro. They're things that we can control. And I think it's always really useful to put ourselves in control, as opposed to putting like a thing that we can't control as a barrier to you getting in amazing shape, for example.
So speaking of what we're putting into our bodies, most of us think that losing weight is about eating less. Is that the right approach?
It always helps. So the forever statement of move more, eat less always does work, but eating less doesn't, especially with the South Asian food, doesn't mean that you're going to eat less calories, which is what the motto is about. Basically, the motto should be eat less calories, burn more calories. But for example, as we spoke about, like chevro, you could have one spoonful of that, and that would be the equivalent of a chocolate bar. And if you take the elements of things, it doesn't mean that smaller or less means less calories. It just means that you have to be aware of how much energy is in this food, how many calories are in our food. So I think you should use it as a baseline principle of eating less will be useful. But then from a health perspective, we want to make sure that whatever's in your food is going to be conducive to a healthy living, fiber for your glucose and your pre-diabetes, for example, protein for the muscles, the bones, the recovery, your cognitive function. So it is that as metric, but at the same time, we need to consider what you're putting in there, what that gives back to you in terms of your health.
Now, I've seen on your socials you've got astounding success stories, Nathan, including some pretty well-known names.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, people want to work with me, and I think that they're getting some great results. So yeah, we've been working with some of the guys from India Matchmakers, Shaka, Shitul, Vinny recently came on, and these guys, are absolutely fantastic to work with.
Incredible. Now, we are 2 weeks into 2024, and many will have made a resolution to lose weight. Where would you say they should start?
Well, the first thing, probably follow me on Instagram, but the second part would be to set out some structures as opposed to goals. So your goal won't be attained if you just have a goal, but if you have a process and a structure that leads to a goal, you're more likely to achieve it. So how many servings of fruit and veg are you going to have a day? Are you going to do that walk that you said you're going to do every single day? Like process-driven goals. To save money in your bank account isn't just dreaming saving money in your bank account. It's actually putting the direct debit in place and making sure there's filtered out money to go there every single month. It would be the same with health and fitness. Look at your day-to-day routine, whatever the goal is, whether it's to be more healthy, to lose weight, to drop a dress size. It's about, okay, well, Monday to Sunday, how am I going to do that? And start mapping out from a nutrition and exercise perspective, and use that burn more, eat less as a major barometer.
So you mentioned your Instagram. How do people find you online?
It's nathan.autonomy. We have our main page, and if you want our second page, it is South Asian Fat Loss, or at South Asian Fat Loss.
Nathan, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's really late where you are. I probably need to hit you up, or maybe not, on where you get that gel from.
Yeah, it's the secret stuff. Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.